everyone. Thank you once again for tuning into the Iconis podcast. I am one of your hosts, Barry 3D. On my side is the man, the myth, the legend, my friend, as always, one of my best friends, the one and only
Rod C. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. We are going to have some fun today. The icon is, I'm not going to say a word. Not a word. Not yet.
Can't say who it is. You probably saw the title right now, but we'll go through this. Once again, we are joined by the one and only fabulous world traveler, our other brother from another mother, the one and only Larry Reclusado. Larry, how you doing today?
Great. I'm doing great.
This is awesome. Like Larry, I love the outfit, man. It's beautiful, Larry. It's beautiful. And I will say this, so we'll go through, because manners maketh the man. We go through this as quick as we can. I can almost be a rapper. All right. So first and foremost, everyone, you got to support the books that support the shows. This is what gives us all the stuff to talk about. So please always support the books. Go to your local comic book store and keep them going. And ones we like to go to is Wow Comics out in Kitchener. Tell Wes and the guys we said hi. Check out Once Upon a Hero's Tale. There we go. A Hero's Tale out in Cambridge. Tell Andrew the guys we said hi. And of course, Check Swing are from our stomping ground back in Montreal. Tell Trevor and the rest of the guys we said hi. If you want to see where I'm going to be at or what I'm doing, please check out barry3d.com. That's my website. All my social media links are on there. Also for this show too, they're all on there for the Iconis podcast. Rod, where can they find you real quick?
You can find me on the World Wide Web. You can find me on Instagram at Mr. Rod C. You can also find me on twitch.tv/DJ Rod C. You can find me on the world of TikTok at DJ Rod C1. That's DJ Rod C1. Yes.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And Larry, we love having you on. Where can people find you? Because you do everything, in my opinion. Where can we find you, Larry?
Well, the best place to find me is on Facebook in the Forgotten, Obscure, and Underrated Comic Characters page. We also have our Forgotten TV shows from our childhood page. And our Comic Characters Duel page. Need to get more people on that one.
Okay, perfect. So you see all the pages. You heard it now. You see all the pages you can join to keep this all promoting. And remember, the most important thing on there are two things. One, all those pages are for fun. So come and have a good time. And to keep the fun going, respect the rules. Okay. Read the rules first, respect them. And therefore, you respect everyone that's a part of those groups. And therefore, everything is fun. No hassles. If you have a bad day, don't write a comment that day. Wait till you're in a better mood and then put in a nice positive comment. It's open for discussion. Okay, that's what I got to say on that. Sweet. Now, on top of that, we're also part of the I know there's Rebel Rock Radio and all that. We're part of the Subculture Podcast Network. So please check out the Subculture Podcast Network. It's our podcast along with 5 others, and it's to cover everything from comic books to Star Wars to Star Trek and everything from here and beyond, Doctor Who, all that stuff. So great shows, great guys. Check them out. Give them a listen. We're having a good time there. And on top of that, to make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't let the show be a secret. Also, this is the Iconis podcast. We have a lot of good fun here. We've got some other stuff going. I did some unboxing, some inner thoughts, and some toy hunting over at antique malls. Check out those videos. Check out the audio. Let everyone know. Of course, now, if you, and this is what I almost forgot, if you want to do a podcast, I mean, the last episode, not this one because I'm doing it now. If you want to do a podcast and you don't know where to go, you should go and check out podbean.com. That's where we can find our podcast at iconis.podbean.com, or you can get it any place you get your audio podcast from Spotify to iTunes. We are there. And of course, you can see we're also on YouTube because this is where you're finding this show. If you need someone to do any kind of graphic arts, there's only one man and one man you can turn to alone.
J Bird Digital Art.
Mr. Jason Reese, J Bird Digital Arts. You tell him you've heard about him on the Iconis podcast, and he will give you a discount on the work. Okay. Thank you, Jay, for making this look so pretty today. Oh, I'm in a rapping mood this evening. I'm good. I went to the antique mall. I picked up a big Jim figure, right, in the commando gear, and I got myself the classic Star Trek bridge playset, the original one. that opens up with
Red chair.
Yep. It was a decent price. I was like, okay, thank you, One of a Kind Antique Mall, for always hooking me up. And I got my Big Jim camper, so now I'm looking for the Big Jim Spy vehicles and base. So that's a different thing. Hopefully, it won't break the budget. Okay,
nice.
And that's a different topic for a different show. Larry is here today because today on the Iconist podcast, the icon is
the Mighty Crusaders.
The Mighty Crusaders. Let me say,
and we'll cover some other teams with their name too.
Oh, absolutely. And before we get into that, Larry, we're going to let you take the show away. But when it comes to the Mighty Crusaders, I'll say this. Usually we do a character one-on-one. Very rare we'll do it. But when Larry's on, we got to do the full team. We got to do the history. We got to go A to Z. If you want to strap in, get your popcorn, turn the lights down low. If you're watching us, please put us on the big screen TV and enjoy the journey that Larry is about to take you on, and we're here for it too. So the Mighty Crusaders, you might say, who? You're going to learn today. Here we go.
All right. Well, first we got to talk a little bit about a company that you will have heard of quite a bit when they changed their name. But originally they started out as MLJ, the initials of the three guys who started the company, comics, back in the 40s. And they had several superheroes. The most popular at the time were the Shield and the Fly. And then, right around 1943, a little red-headed character got added to their books. And he kind of took over. So much that they actually renamed the company for him, Archie Comics. Now, we know you know Archie Comics.
Yes.
So, Mighty Crusaders. Yep. Yeah. Mighty Crusaders were made up of several of the superheroes that were in MLJ back in the 40s. And right around 1965, that they formed the team because of the success of both the Justice League and the Avengers titles. And this started with a issue of Flyman, which they redubbed the name from The Fly, probably because of the supervillain in Spider-Man. And it was made up of the Shield, the first patriotic superhero, just if you want a little bit of trivia there. The Black Hood, the Fly, and the Comet. Now,
yes,
we'll go into some of these guys individually in later shows, but for right now, we're just going to focus on the team. This started in, let me see, I believe it was the issue 33 of the Flyman comic. And people liked it so much that they actually did manage to spin them off into their own series. Unfortunately, it only ran for about 7 issues. And that wasn't bad. Joining the team, once they actually moved from the Flyman comic into their own, was Fly Girl. So you get 5 members of the team, basically. Of course, you have to have your girl character, kind of like the Wasp in Avengers at the time.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. Then, unfortunately, it kind of went away for a while. Now, they had a couple of interesting things go on, but right around 1983, there was a writer named Rich Buckler, also a penciler, and he was working with DC Comics at the time. They had a dispute, which it got resolved, fortunately, but it gave him time to go work on a reboot of the Crusaders. That was a little bit different of a team. I will get into the characters who were there, but that ran for about 13 issues under what was called the Red Circle. The original Red Circle, which was still Archie Comics, but it was where they were trying to reboot their superheroes. for the 80s.
Nice.
Yep. So then it dies out for a little bit. Because about 1985, they canceled after issue 13. And then in 1992, DC Comics acquired the license to relaunch every title that they had under Archie Comics for the superheroes under a imprint called Impact. This was aimed at younger readers, and several of them lasted a while. Some really good titles there. The Web was probably the best one as far as I was concerned, as they redid the whole concept of the Web. Instead of being just a superhero, being like an espionage team.
Yes.
So that was an interesting concept. Unfortunately, poor sales again killed it. People were thinking, oh, this is like aimed at kids, so they weren't buying it. Kids weren't buying it because they were thinking it was more aimed at adults. What can you do? Most of those ended between 8 and 10 issues, unfortunately.
You're right. I remember that.
Yep. This also some of these characters were partial inspirations to Alan Moore for the Watchmen series. Matter of fact, the Crusaders themselves, they were pretty much the inspiration for the Minutemen, if you remember the Watchmen.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and I'll leave it up to you to figure out who's who. It's easy to figure out which Carlton characters were the Watchmen, but try to figure out who's who from the
Minutemen
Crusaders into the Minutemen.
Well, I'll say this because I gotta be me. I know the Fly Girl is not Jennifer Lopez, right? That's a different Fly Girl altogether from A Living Color. So we know that's not Jennifer Lopez, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just give you like my own personal history of some of this. So I did know of the characters, but I didn't know them in their initial run. I mean, I knew the characters. I never read them in their initial run. I actually started picking up the books when Impact finally got the license and it came under the Impact, label. I didn't find that, even though Impact, it might have been more for kids, was still written really well, that it wasn't for kids. So I think there was a misconception there, bad marketing. However they want to look at it, they probably look Archie's for kids. Okay, this would be for kids, right? It's not Little Comet, it's not Little Shield, it's not Little Fly, it's not, they actually were really good storylines, and they actually had a full arc as the Crusaders, or the Mighty Crusaders, from when it started, I think issue 1 to issue 12, where they had to fight like a common enemy at the time,
right,
which was nice. It really built up. Now the difference is, I mean, I know the Shield, you had the Shield that I was interested in, and I thought that was really well done. And to your point, the Web, I like that they took the character of the Web from being a singular person and made him or them, it went from him to them, make him into an organization, spy, espionage organization, special armor. It reminded me a lot of Checkmate from DC Comics.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And one of the main agents they followed around, he was on like a futuristic looking kind of Harley in the armor with a big red beard. I remember that. He's a little bit older character, but he was an older agent, but he was like solid. He was a bad man. And those are the books. And of course, the Fly. I like the Fly. I like the aesthetics of the Fly. Jaguar, I didn't get too much into. I read that a couple of issues. I read a couple of issues of the Black Hood. In the Comet, yes, I was very into it because the Comet seemed very similar to degrees for me as Nova, the human rocket, right? That's how I drew the parallels into these characters. So knowing that they were from Archie Comics, doing something similar, more serious, getting back into their superhero roots, I was all on board with. They did a good marketing campaign. It could have been, it was fair. It could have been better to really put their staple in there. And I'm glad you're talking about this because these are heroes that I think everyone's always looking for the next thing. What can they do? Archie Comics is popular. Case closed. They have the bankroll. I think, and I'm not trying to jump ahead of myself. I think that these are characters who should come back in some type of form of media already that they haven't. If Archie's had live action movies, pretty much straight Archie, Andrew movies, direct to TV movies, and we had Riverdale, I don't see why the Mighty Crusaders can't come back. But let me not get ahead of myself. This is, it was short lived, but so much to it. And even like I'll say this, Jerry Siegel turned around, one of the co-creators of Superman wrote I think it was a Shield that he was working on, if I'm right.
For a while.
Right.
For a short time. Yeah. And before we get into, just so I'm going to run down the lineups for these first 3 sets. Sure. Then we'll get into the next 3.
Okay. Fair.
So back in 1960s, the first ones we had were the Black Hood, the Comet, the Fly Girl, Shield, and of course, and that's it pretty much. Yes. They did have, I do believe they did have a couple of guest appearances here and there with other characters like the Web, but they weren't part of the team. Then when we get to when Red Circle came out in 1980s, we had the second Black Hood, the nephew of the original Black Hood, the Comet, a character called Darkling, which I don't know much about, who was killed off very quickly.
Right.
The Fly Girl, the first Jaguar, who is male.
Yes.
Because when we get to Impact, that changes. Lancelot Strong, the second Shield, or Shield 2. And the second Web. Oh, and then the Shield 1, so you got 2 Shields on the team. And the second Web, who is the son of the original Web from the 1960s at that time. And again, that killed off in 13 issues, so it didn't really go a lot of places. Now, when we get to Impact, the Crusaders lasted 8 issues, and it was pretty much the same team except Lancelot Strong wasn't on it.
Okay.
All right. So that's pretty much where we're at. Then we jump ahead a little bit, and DC gets the rights again. And it's right around Final Crisis time.
Okay.
All right. And they decide they are going to reboot some of the characters and add a new one. Well, technically an old one, but hadn't been seen in several years. And that was Inferno.
All right. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So that did unfortunately didn't go very long. However, they did have some interesting things. They also introduced a new character called War Eagle to that team. So in this team, we have the Comet, Inferno, Fly Girl, the Shield, the Web, back to being an individual. Hangman, another character that was revived from the 40s that hadn't been seen in a while. The Fox, third character of the same type. Jaguar, female Jaguar.
Yes.
At this point. Black Hood and War Eagle. So getting a little large team there, but they're figuring, hey, if the Avengers can have 7 members, why not? This is where we get into a little strangeness.
Oh boy.
All right. So now we're past the 90s. Nothing really happens for a while there. And then in 2012, Archie Comics decides to launch an online new Crusaders.
I remember seeing the ad for this.
Yes, all digital, and it was finally reprinted under the Red Circle app for a while, but that's it. They were going to do a what we call the 4th week or 5th week in some cases, where they would have every 4th week you would get another partial story called the Lost Crusaders. And this was supposed to go back and fill in the gap between the 1980 series and the new Crusaders.
Oh.
But it never happened. Yeah. Apparently, the incoming Red Circle editor had a fondness for the stuff and aimed the book to do a lot in March, and then nothing happened. Because Archie Comics at this time was launching their dark series. Afterlife with Archie. The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Right.
Right. So they said,
oh, is the Afterlife? I'm sorry, Afterlife of Archie. Is this after Archie dies?
he's not dead yet.
Oh, okay,
When it
okay,
starts.
okay.
But basically, it's the zombie apocalypse.
Oh, that one. Okay, sorry, I was thinking of a different storyline. All right.
Yeah. Yep. So, and I do think he actually dies in the series at some point because they go off on Jughead being a werewolf and so forth and so on. I didn't follow all of it, so I can't give you the full run.
I thought Riverdale was weird. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. But hey, at least they made a good TV show with the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Yeah. Yep.
Netflix. Yeah. All right. So they come off with that and they decide, you know what? Let's do a darker version of our superhero comics. At which they launched various titles in their dark. And during that, they introduced a new Shield, a new Hangman, and so forth. They did put out a short run of Crusaders that nobody saw. It basically didn't really get bought by the as you know, the comic stores have to buy things 3 months in advance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Pre-book it. Yeah.
Exactly. So they just really didn't get anything, but I'll give you the rundown of who was in it. The new Shield, female, Victoria Adams is her name. They brought back the Darkling character. A character called Firefly, which was a new take on Inferno.
Okay.
The Comet.
Right.
And both Jaguars. Started with
male
the male
and
and ended with the female. Yeah. All right. And that's pretty much where they ended. So those all ran about for, although they did do a couple of collections, and the new Crusaders, which were mostly the published version of the new Crusaders, which were mostly the legacies of the originals after the originals had been killed.
Okay.
Only the Shield remained.
Oh, wow. All right, then.
The first Shield to teach.
Yeah.
First Shield. Okay.
Yeah. And that's pretty much where we're at with what happened with the Mighty Crusaders.
Okay. Okay. So here's a couple of questions for you, Larry. So question number one. All right. So question number one, and we could go. I love the Crusaders. So, were you working at a comic book store at the time when the Crusaders were coming out?
I was working at a comic book store when they were coming out during Final Crisis.
Oh, Final Crisis. Okay. Did you ever have? So you're in the store. I mean, working or running it, owning it. Did people talk about the Crusaders? And this is just my own feedback, curiosity question, right? Because I know I like the obscure stuff, so I'll go and look for it if it comes out and it grabs my eye. If I like the art, of course, and then I'll read it and see if I'm going to continue with it or not. But I never heard much of a buzz when I personally went to the store, so I wasn't sure if you heard something different yourself.
Okay. Well, here's the thing with the Crusaders. At the times that I was working at the comic stores, in the 80s, it had a fairly good follow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that was basically their first run as a team, more or less. Well, second run, I should say.
Yeah.
But a lot of them had a good following at the time.
Mm-hmm.
In the 90s, not quite as good, but the toys sold. That was the odd thing. The toys sold, the comics didn't sell as well. Where we got in a lot of people asking for stuff, especially the web comic and the Hangman comic, oddly enough, was during the 2012. And then when the people heard that they were going to be in the Crusaders comic, people wanted that. I'd say maybe it was about 10% of my customers. But that's good. But, I'm here in Virginia, in the States. So we have a little odd thing because we've got DC right here. We've got Richmond, West Virginia close by.
Exactly.
And Maryland. So I get people from all over coming into my store because we had a reputation. And as we always told anybody, it's like, okay, when you walk in my store, you're not a customer, you're family.
Yes.
Okay. So, that basically was it. Plus, we had over, let me see, between the 5 of us, 130 years of comic
knowledge. Nice.
That's the brain trust right there.
The owner been collecting since the 40s. I've been collecting since the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, my owner's first comic was a painting on a wall in France. But anyway.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. International Man of Mystery, Larry. I always say that. And the only reason I was asking, because we're here on Canadian soil, right? So I didn't know how it was perceived or how it was received in the States. I don't know if I'm here. I'm all pro. Don't get this the wrong way. I'm all pro Crusaders, Mighty Crusaders, 100%, right? Especially in that 80s, 90s run Impact comics. I'm all with that positive. I don't know if it being done by an Archie, like Archie Comics, made people kind of step back because with Archie, we think lighthearted and humor for younger audiences. So did it get hurt by that to a certain degree?
Well, it depended on whether or not you knew it was Archie.
Okay.
See, because they had the Red Circle Blue Ribbon run. Blue Ribbon was actually reprints of the Red Circle. And that was very popular in the 80s. And nobody knew that was Archie.
Got it.
Smart.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's how you save the rebrand, by rebranding it differently. Yeah, okay, I see what they did.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then when DC had them out, people learned it was Archie in the 90s, but they didn't care. Because they already got a following in the Impact.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
When they brought them out again, for basically DC's run of the Red Circle, and that did not catch on as well. Exactly. It caught on, and people liked it, but it didn't catch on as well as it had in the 80s, 90s.
Right. Okay.
And then, unfortunately, the Dark Circle, by the time they got to the Crusader team, they had already fallen off. And I think that was because of the fact that although they were going darker, they didn't have a exact same genre. You had the Hood, which was a crime drama.
Exactly, yes.
You had the Hangman, which was a mystical. I mean, you had basically the Hangman is a character who's dead and brought back to serve out justice. Kind of similar
Dead Man. He's like Dead Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Dead Man, Ghost Rider. Yeah, Dead Man. I would say more. You're right, Dead Man. Yeah,
more Dead Man. He's born Dead Man. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, and they went for the Dark Circle. What they did is they took the original Hangman. He finishes his business and ascends. And the guy whose murder he's avenging is a mobster, and he gets a choice: burn in hell or become the next Hangman.
Pick up the mantle.
Which are you gonna do?
Retribution for your crimes while you were alive.
Does this hood come in different colors?
Yeah, so Hangman.
Come in different colors.
But that's a cool concept, though. It's either burn in hell for the crimes you committed, or carry on and try to atone for the sins you caused. So,
right, but the problem with this is it's a 4-issue thing, and that's how the last issue ends.
Got it.
Wow.
It's like the Phantom. It just sounds
Yeah.
like. Or,
I see it
was
more
it
as the Spectre.
the Spectre? Sorry, that's what I meant. That's what I
Yes.
meant. That's what I. As soon as I said it, wait, that didn't sound right. The Spectre. That definitely sounded like the Spectre.
Yeah.
You see, I will admit for myself, I didn't know too much about the Mighty Crusaders. So listening to what you're telling me, this is great. As always, you like digging into the crates. You like going into the to the comic books and boxes that's beneath the basement behind the furnace and just blowing off dust. Yeah, you're going
You
deep.
should see my collection.
Like I said, this guy, I'm basically giving a layout of his house. People, do not go into his house. People, don't go by the furnace. But what I like what I was hearing in the different, for one, again, not knowing that Archie or MLJ started with that. They started off with the Crusaders, and you can see, okay, that's the early days, like the silver, the golden age, kind of like comparison to the Justice League, Justice Society, Justice League, and then and again, they remade it back with a newer team.
It's Golden Age characters doing their individual stuff in the 40s,
right?
Gone by the 50s,
bring them back
in the 60s,
going
in the
silver
Silver Age, and make a team.
Right, and it's great finding out that MJL did that again. MJL in its own entity,
MLJ.
like his own entity. But then when you find out, no, now you turn him into Archie, and Archie has that property. That's the interesting part. It's the interesting part of realizing, like, Archie, you had this in your shelf, and now realizing, no, we've been promoting and pushing it out. Come back again as a red, and you said red and blue, and as I can see, up to 2012. Sorry, yeah, so 2012 is when they went to the dark. So that means within the past 10, 12 years, they tried to, shake it around and see what we could do with it. I like that. I didn't realize as of late that they tried to put some life back into it. So that means there's a possibility. And like you're saying, if it wasn't a four issue, that probably would have picked up something.
Yeah, exactly.
That would probably pick up something.
They had Shield 4 issues. I think they did the Hood. Yeah, the Hood 4 issues. Hangman,
Great.
4 issues. The Fox, 4 issues. And then a Crusaders, going back to the new Crusaders.
And was that 4 issue? Do you recall, was that 4 issue a monthly, or was that a weekly like they did back in the days?
It was a monthly.
It was monthly, because at least at that point.
Yep.
Nowadays, everything is monthly. So just wondering, is it monthly? Was it 2 months? Was it weekly? Whatever the case be.
And if you're lucky, I just went and picked up the collected of some of these at something called Ollie's, which is a discount store down here. It's basically you walk in, it's whatever is overstocked from other places. You can find it in places like that.
Yeah, I would love to read these like the omnibus, get a collection of them, and read them all together.
They have trade paperbacks today, buddy.
All right, then. All right, then. Got to make room on the shelves. Okay.
I mean, I can give you the ISBNs later.
Done. Okay.
But let's get. I want to go into the toys real quick.
Oh, sure. Yes, absolutely, right. Please.
So, in the 1966, Remco released some of the board game by Transogram title, but still Remco, which featured the Mighty Crusaders. However, they changed some of the names, like the Fox became Mr. Fox, and so on. Then there were carded action figures produced in '84 from Remco again, featuring packaging art by who created Spider-Man?
Steve Ditko.
Steve Ditko.
Nice.
Correct. And each came with a sonic signaling shield. It included four of the heroes and 4 of the villains. Those were the Comet, the Fox, the Web, and the Shield. And the bad guys were the Brain Emperor, who was the villain in the first ever Mighty Crusaders title. The Buzzard, the Eraser, and the Sting, which I have no clue what that was.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they did it. I don't remember who did it, but someone did a very quick run of like the Shield, the Comet, and the web to pop out at 92. They didn't go anywhere as far as buying them. It wasn't like set it up. No, like Marvel and DC does the sets, so they weren't the sets, so they didn't sell very well.
Okay.
And that's pretty much the story of the Crusaders.
Holy crap! All right, so
unless you want to get into actually talking about individual guys.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, we're going to. So let's start with the one that's going to be because it's patriotic. The Shield. So here's my first question, and once again, it's because I don't know, so I ask. Right? There's nothing wrong with asking a question. So the Shield, was the Shield created before or after Captain America?
He was a year before.
He is before.
He is the first ever patriotic superhero imprint.
What?
Interesting.
I've
seen the Shield. I've seen the Shield as well, but I thought it came after. Didn't realize that was before.
He was before, but I wasn't sure.
As a matter of fact, you know why Captain America has a round shield?
Well, I know he has one, but I don't know why. Because I know he started off first with the bicentennial, the triangle one there.
Yeah.
If you ever look at the Shield's costume,
you can see it's the same.
Hot dog. Yes. 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 Yes.
Yep. And that was Pep Comics #1 in January of 1940.
What? That's okay. Okay. This is why I like having you on. You're like, the encyclopedia of all this stuff. So if we got to break down some of the single characters, I mean, I know when I look at the Jaguar, every time I heard Jaguar, I'm always thinking like Jaguar Man, which is less comics, totally different thing. But the Jaguar. So yes, we got to start with the Shield. The Shield, I think, is the first one. Obviously, that's a patriotic hero. He came out a year before Captain America themselves. Clearly we're on to something here, and I see exactly what you're talking about. I'm looking at a picture. So I don't know enough of it. Let's start with the Shield. So let's start with the first Shield. I'm sure you know first Shield's history. What was this first Shield's history? Because I know in each one there's different Shields, right?
Right. All right. So the Shield first appeared in a comic called Shield/Woodward Comics #1. He's a chemist named Joe Higgins, son of Lieutenant Tom Higgins. Tom was working on a chemical formula for super strength, in which the Germans were after, of course. Tom gets killed. The saboteur is in the explosion, in which basically Joe was blamed for Tom's death. But Joe continues his studies, uses the solution, applies it to certain parts of his anatomy, and by exposing himself to x-rays afterwards, he is given super strength, the ability to make great leaps, and invulnerability.
Sounds familiar.
He becomes an FBI agent who's only person who knows the secret identity is the director, who was at that time J. Edgar Hoover. And after clearing his father's names, he begins to fight foreign agents on U.S. soil.
I don't know, but I think I've heard elements of that story before.
Somewhere. It sounds
all over the place.
So did anyone get any hot water for kind of taking one idea that's very similar to the Shield that we see up to now? Like, did
everybody stole from everybody else? The only time that anybody got pissed off is when Captain Marvel started selling more than Superman.
Yes. Okay. All right. So okay. So we got that. So that's the first Shield. So I like that. Higgins.
Oh, and then later on, he also gets a kid partner named Dusty the Boy Detective.
So if I had to stretch, would this possibly be like related to Higgins from Magnum PI? No relation. No relation. Okay, let's stop it.
Anything's possible.
Hey, he had to retire. So okay, so I like this whole concept, the fact of very similar story. Obviously, Captain America, Steve Rogers took very lean, borrowed elements from this Shield comic.
like the light array.
Right. Get it. I like the fact they made it different that he was working for the FBI. Mayor Hoover was the only one who knew his identity. So instead of going with the army, they went FBI, gets more into espionage. And if you look at Captain America in the movies now.
Stateside, too.
Yeah, stateside. Exactly. And Captain America was the Winter Soldier. I found it very espionage themed. So I think those elements are still being born now. Once again, liking the Shield. I like what I'm seeing and hearing here. Yeah, I would. This came back with the same general original story. I'd be invested. I'd be if you told me it's for the FBI or you change it to CIA because you want to put them, outside the U.S. I'd be invested. That's for sure.
Well, if you remember when DC brought them back under their second Red Circle title, they actually put the Shield character as a guy who was testing army equipment.
Yeah. And it was a suit he was wearing.
Yes.
Like the suit gave right. I see. Okay, I like this. So let's go into the Shield. Let's go. So, okay. I like the first. So what was this? Okay, so that's the original Shield.
Yep.
Right.
That's the original Shield.
That's the original Shield. So now the second one I remember the most, honestly, I mean, I know there's another one, but the one I remember the most is the one from Impact Comics where he kind of got like that power armor kind of thing. But let's go through the rest of the other Shields. I'm curious.
All right. So we've got Joe. And then we get a second Shield. He appears actually in 1959. Joe Simon was asked to create another superhero, a new Shield type, and he created something which was titled The Double Life of Private Strong, which is Lancelot Strong. Now, Lancelot's father develops a method to create superhumans by expanding the mind, which he used on his infant son. After his father was killed, by the way, I am reading from my notes. After his father was killed by foreign agents, Lancelot was adopted by a farm couple and raised as their son. Once he hits his teens, he discovers the truth about his backgrounds and his powers, which include strength, flight, near invulnerability, vision powers, and the ability to generate lightning. He gets a few more later on, kind of like Superman did in the 60s. But they're like one-shots, and then you never see him again.
Yeah.
When he uses them. And his adoptive father creates a patriotic costume for him. And he starts off as the new superhero of the Shield. And then later on, when they decide to put both Shields out in the 80s, I think it's the 80s by then, yeah. He is Shield 2.
And
so
I'll say
Shield 1 and Shield 2. Yeah.
Shield 1 and Shield 2, got it. And I'll say this, because I like tease and rod.
Yeah.
So the second Shield.
They also revamped the stories later on in various ways.
Right. Okay.
So there have been multiple stories about the Shield.
No, Shield. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what about Lancelot Strong, Rod? You know about Lancelot Strong? I'll say this. I just see it. It first appeared in June of 1959. Gemini.
Yep. Correct.
Saw that. Here we go. Saw the setup. There you go.
He also, when he actually joined the army himself, he basically did the Gomer Pyle type acting to hide his identity.
Oh, if you're tuned into this show, you should know who Gomer Pyle is. And if you're not, then go and Google it.
Yep.
Classic
Now, there
comedy.
is something intriguing about Lancelot Strong is the character was given back to the original creator in 1999, that being Joe Simon.
Wow. Okay. All right. Any reason why they gave him back, or?
No, not really, but they say.
Okay.
Then you have later revamps in which the Shield is both Bill and Joe Higgins Jr., the sons of the original Shield. He starts out as Bill, then he becomes Joe Higgins Jr. later.
Okay, so it's not two people. It's he starts off as Bill, then changes his name to Joe Higgins Jr. later, or it's retconned. Or all right, all
and
right.
then we have two others. For a short time, we have a Legend of the Shield with a Lieutenant Michael Burns, married father with a young daughter, who becomes the new Shield after the original Shield is presumed dead. And that only runs for 6 issues in a miniseries called The Crucible.
Yes.
And finally, we have Victoria Adams, who becomes the new Shield, and she takes up the mantle during the New Crusaders runs.
Okay. Now this is all interesting stuff. Okay, so that's got it. That's the Shield. Now I got to go with another character that I always liked. So can we go into the Fly?
Sure.
Let's go into the Fly and Fly Girl once again. Not Jennifer Lopez. No, she was born with Thanos trying to collect the rings. Okay, we're good.
All right. Gotta give me a second because I gotta get to my right notes.
No problem. I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place. I'm just excited that we're covering this, and this is a lot in here.
Yep. So, the Fly first appears in 1959, and he's later called Flyman. He was created by Joe Simon again, published by Red Circle Comics, and his first appearance is in the Double Life of Private Strong, and then he spins out into his own full-length appearance as The Adventures of the Fly. Now, Joe Simon said the character was not inspired by a fly, but by a spider. And the origin would be very similar to a character called Tommy Troy. I have to look that up personally. In which he would find a ring that would grant him powers. So, okay. Apparently, looking back over my notes, he was provisionally calling the characters Spider-Man or Silver Spider, but for some reason he had to rework the character into the Fly. And he reworked the Spider character to become the Fly's major villain.
Oh,
so yeah.
So we went from almost having a spider-like themed character, the hero, reworked it to the Fly, and then turned that hero who would have been into the villain for him, right? So the Fly, the spider, right. Yeah, it makes sense that the two of them would be. It does. Yeah. Okay, and now what was? And he got it from a magic ring. His powers from a magic ring.
Yeah.
All right. And what
originally?
So what was the character's backstory? I mean, pardon me?
Backstory. There may have been some changes. So it's been a while here. Yeah. All right. So backstory. All right. Here we go. Tommy Troy is an orphan hired by Ben, sometimes called Ezra, and Abigail March. One late night, he tries wearing a ring with a fly-shaped emblem he finds in their attic. Turns out that the Marches were wizards, and the ring summons Turan, one of the Fly people. Turan explains that the Fly people used to rule the earth, and they used magic to do various things. There was a war. Only a few Fly people managed to escape to another dimension. Why does this remind me of the cat? Anyway. And they decide to grant one person of pure heart the ability to fight crime and greed, which was their own downfall. And Tommy is that person. By rubbing the ring and say, "I wish I were a fly," he exchanged the bodies with an other dimensional being and becomes costume adult superhero, the Fly.
Shazam!
Yeah. Later to become Fly Man, and joined by Fly Girl after as he becomes an adult and takes up being a lawyer.
Did he have any powers or anything like that? What was
All right. So the fly possesses whatever powers a world's insects possess multiplied times the nth quantity. Prime examples are strength of 1,000,000 ants, flight as fast as 1,000,000 flies, durability, the power to shatter materials by vibrating his wings and in chirping cricket fashion, webbing spun from the small of his back and bioluminescent light and heat, resistance to radiation, and the ability to mentally control some insects.
Yeah. Okay. So he's got a wide variety of powers. A little bit of spider, a little bit Ant-Man. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
You know, he's probably got the annoyance of flying around people's faces and getting too close. He's not respecting people's personal space. You know, but I'll say this. But you know, jokes aside, he could have been a legacy. Well, what I mean, and keep me in mind, legacy character. I mean, he's kind of the Billy Batson, Shazam kind of character, right? You start off as young, but you turn into an adult. But the difference is they aged him and made him an adult at one point. Yes. So he then was an adult turning into his adult self. Mm-hmm. And that the series of stories you're going to have and perspective, even though it's a fly, when he's a 12-year-old boy, so to speak, or turning into the fly, opposed to a 20-year-old man to a 30-year-old man, and he became a lawyer. Okay, we're looking at you, Matt Murdock. This, but you know what I mean? Like, as a 12-year-old, and I'm just using that number, I'm not saying that's what he was, but at a 12, 13-year-old, you view the world a certain way.
Yes.
Right.
Differently, because you mature and you learn from life experience as opposed to how you view the world as a 30-year-old.
Yes.
You know, and he
as
had
long
a
as
strong sense of...
as long as you don't stay in your superhero form like Marvel Man Jr., I don't remember.
Oh, is it Miracle Man?
Became Miracle Man. Yeah. But exactly.
Right. So he didn't, and he grew up, he matured, and you know how he must have started off his superhero days to how he, you know, and the whole thing with the ring, it just kind of gives me vibes of Earth 2 Hawkman and Hawkgirl. You know? Yeah, like, you know, they were reincarnated, but it's still kind of a little bit of a magic kind of theme deal. So that's how I feel about it. Every time I looked at the Fly and Fly Girl, I always thought of Earth 2 Hawkman and Hawkgirl. Right?
I see that.
The reincarnated instead of the ones from Thanagar. So that's interesting. The only thing I gotta say is, like, when you're telling me, you know, fly people from a different dimension, I'm thinking Jermaine Jackson, his song "Planet of the Bee People." Wow. And y'all think I'm joking, but that was actually that's actually a song, "Planet of the Bee People." You know it, Jermaine Jackson. Okay, I had the album. So all right, so that's the Fly. So then, where does Fly Girl come into this whole scenario? We've talked about the Fly.
Okay, so Fly Girl pops in. And give me a second because I got to pop back into her. Right. Okay. All right. Well, his girlfriend Kim, this is after he's an adult.
Yes.
Is given her own fly ring after she helps him out in a couple of things by the fly people, and basically, she joins him on his adventures. For a time, she actually got more popular than he did. Yeah.
See, once again, the Hawks. Right? Because if you think about it,
that's actually kind of what happened, isn't it?
Yeah. Because if you're looking at the first appearance of Hawkman, right, in Flash Comics, so we're talking, you know, Carter Hall, archaeologist, he finds the nth metal for the wings, he goes on. Shara Hall, is it Shara Hall? It's not Hall.
Shiera,
thank you. She makes her appearance, but she doesn't don the Hawkgirl costume until a good few issues later. So she's in there, she's dealing with Carter. They start talking and they show the relationship kind of going, as how best comics at that time would show a relationship kind of blossoming. And then she becomes Hawkgirl. So it's not like it happens overnight right away. When they first meet, she's like, wait a minute. She didn't know who he was. And then first meeting him was like, wait a minute, I'm the reincarnation of, you know, your lover from the past. And even then she still didn't don that. So that's, once again, common. All right. Okay.
Oh, now I can remember her name. Kim Brand was Fly Girl's name. Mm-hmm. Now, the originally, the only powers that they actually had were things like walking up walls, flight, the buzz thing with the wings, which later in the 60s they changed it to a buzz gun.
Yes, that's what it had. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, and then they got all these other powers, insect themed powers as they went, which came and went depending on the writer.
Okay. Yeah. No consistency. They needed an editor in chief. So we've got, so we've covered them. Now what about the web? The web.
Okay.
I only know more as the web as a organization, not as the individual.
All right. So, the web. We start in the 1940s with Zip Comics in July of 42. His secret identity was John Raymond, a college professor of criminology and mystery writer. Interest in studies, motivated and behaviors of criminals, can't talk, harked back to his youth and the criminal leanings of his brother Tom. And basically, those are his. He does a lot of fighting Nazis at the time. Even though it's 42 to 45, yeah, that's about right. He was actually the lead character for a while on Zip Comics, but he lost that cover spot to Steel Sterling. In 60s, he comes out of retirement, but he'd been retired and married to his wife Rose for a while. She doesn't want him to be a superhero anymore, so his son takes over. He joins the Crusaders after his father's hurt in superhero game and decides to, I'm done.
Right.
The 60s version of the web with a nagging wife and mother-in-law is intended to copy the then popular Marvel comic style, in which superhero characters are seen as coping with conflicts in their personal lives. The web returns to Archie Comics Red Circles in the 80s. That was still the younger Raymond. And he basically gets a suit that enhances your physical skills.
Okay.
All right. Then we get to Impact.
Yes.
Impact reimagines the whole thing as a group of secret agents who wore powered armor, and they were linked by it quite a bit. They could actually link up and give themselves some extra abilities by doing such. Let me see. All right. That incarnation is led by John Raven, who's a spoiled slacker womanizer and finds himself a social life. I.e., sounds like Tony, doesn't it?
Big time.
His brother David is a social worker who distances himself from the family, choosing to help the poor. Despite their differences, they use their family fortunes and their privileged mindsets to basically create this organization for humanitarian goals. They wanted to do a setup of superpowered personas as the web, a common group of people who derive their name from the World Wide Web. Supercomputers, so forth. And that's where you basically get into it. Okay. And there were various characters. I think it was, by the way, David gets killed later on. I do think it was, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that you want. He was my favorite character out of the group too.
Right.
I didn't read a lot of it though. But yeah. But basically, and they actually joined up with Batgirl and Oracle and a new Batgirl in a short crossover at one point.
Okay. The Cassandra Cain Batgirl?
Let me see. Who was Batgirl at that time? Stephanie.
Oh, Stephanie. Okay. Spoiler's daughter. Okay, yeah.
Spoiler.
Spoiler, yeah. So Stephanie Brown. So now did they mention anything about the original web? And anyhow, from your notes that you see there, into the new web, like spy organization?
No, because I think what they did is they revamped John Raymond, which is the original web.
Yeah.
Into that.
Gotcha.
And then when DC relaunched it again that's when they had John, another John, who was basically Tony Stark again on his own, become the Web, and then he decided to give a few other people some web technology.
Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it didn't last long enough to really get further along. And then we finally get to the Dark Circle with the new Crusaders, and that is Jane Raymond, the 14-year-old half Korean, half American daughter of the original Web.
All right, so we're bringing it first look. Okay, got it. Makes sense. So there's two more characters I need to hear about for sure on this journey. So one of them is the Comet, and of course, I want to talk about Jaguar.
Okay, you like Comet. Comet first appeared in Pep Comics #1 in 1940. He's also the first superhero ever to be killed in the line of duty.
Really?
Yes. He dies in issue 17, 1941. That introduces his brother, the original Hangman. All right. So, this was drawn by Jack Cole in Pep Comics #1. And a young scientist named John Dickering has discovered a gas 50 times lighter than hydrogen. By injecting small doses of the gas into his bloodstream, he is able to make great leaps through the air. And after a number of injections, twin beams come from Dickering's eyes. When he crosses the beams, whatever he is looking at disintegrates. All right. He makes a visor that is the only thing that his beams will not disintegrate, which is a weakness often used against him from that story onward.
Look at you, Cyclops. Looking at you.
Yeah. Then he destroys the formula before he dies, gets killed, because he doesn't want anybody else to basically have to deal with that. And if it falls in the wrong hands, hey.
Yep.
He is very casual about killing. He is one of the most casual characters about killing. And starting in issue 3, the police begin to want him for pushing on his use of force and to try to stop his vigilantism. And guess who's one of the people assigned to that case? His brother.
Of course.
Yeah. He destroys a police car, blah, blah, blah. That really gets him going. In issue 17, the Comet is followed to his apartment and killed by gangsters as revenge for putting their boss, Big Boy Malone, in prison. He thus wears the distinction of being the first superhero killed in comics. This thus inspires his brother Bob to become the superhero, the Hangman, in his wake. Now, Bob, the original Hangman, just basically used the noose as his weapon, and he didn't have any powers.
You shall hang. Okay, got it. Wow. All right.
He's arrived in the 80s for the Mighty Crusaders.
Yes.
And basically same difference, except he's not as casual about killing. Again, he's revived for the Impact run, 91-92. Mostly for the 6-issue series called The Crucible, again. And he's finally brought back in as a short backup story in the Inferno run of the DC run of Red Circle.
Okay.
And then you never see him again.
All right. So then, covering most of them, I said, gotta know about Jaguar. That's my last one I want to know right now is Jaguar. Because went from male to female, and then, and I'm not knocking that. I only know the female run, because every time I thought Jaguar, I always kind of went Jaguar, and I was like, wait, and I thought Atlas, but as Jaguar Man. So Atlas Comics, different thing.
Yeah. That one I'm a little I know a bit about, but all right. So, all right. Oh, of course. All right. So, the Jaguar, starts out, it's a guy who is, basically a zoologist and archaeologist. He has a degree in both. He goes down to South America. He has South American roots. He ends up getting a magical belt that gives him the powers of a Jaguar. All right. And that's basically the run in the 40s.
Oh, you said he gets a magical belt?
Belt. Looks like a Jaguar belt. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And that gives him the powers of animals, mostly a Jaguar. Then we get jump ahead. Same thing in the 60s. Same origin, everything. We get to the 80s, Impact.
Yes.
Now, I'm not as familiar with her as I am, but I do believe she has a mystical change.
Yes.
In which she becomes a lot like Tigra.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, she does.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And she is linked to the original Jaguar. I think through blood in some form or fashion. But she's more powerful than he is.
Right.
Yeah. And that's basically it.
Okay. All right then.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have their backgrounds because I didn't get into his stuff.
No, that's fine. And I think from her, I think she was like Latina, like, I'm not sure if she was like Spanish or Colombian or something like that.
Well, I mean, he has South American roots, so it had to be. And yes. Jaguars are mostly, I believe, are around the Amazon River.
Right, exactly. That makes sense. It makes sense. Almost like the Phantom. Okay. Or Manimal.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Look at the similarity of the original Jaguar, like you're saying, with the magical belt.
Yes.
Magical totem.
Exactly. Very much like Dixon.
That's all I was saying right there.
That's all I was saying right there. Okay, so you want to do Jinx? You owe me a beer? I'll take a moose head. You can send it down.
Send down the moose head. Watch this guy.
He was ready for that. He was ready for that. So look, we've gone through we've gone through the general history of the Mighty Crusaders. We've gone through the individual characters
of
the Mighty Crusaders, roughly. Do you see like any of this? Would you want to see it come back? Here's that. So let's go through a couple of quick questions. Would you want to see it come back as a comic book in some form?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I would. As a matter of fact, I do like I did like the take of the new Crusaders, the Legacies.
Right. Yeah.
I'd like them to do something along the lines of, instead of killing off like they did, I'd more like to see something along the lines of the JSA run.
Right. Okay. Which one are you talking about? Like more recent or just
training everybody?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Where they take the new heroes under their wings to train them because, the Justice League. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, like I said, the JSA type.
Right.
Where, especially the run just before it canceled before the New 52, 2011, I believe. Yeah. Where they were introducing characters like, what was his name? Chimera. King Chimera.
Yes. Yeah.
And so forth.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
I would even like to see, like, I still like the Impact line. I like what they kind of worked up to. I would love to see what they would do next. I think I wanted to see more, I like the fact that they're legacy characters and they could have trained maybe other people to take on their namesakes going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But I would still like to see, right. But I would still like to see the original team and more adventures with them. I think it was too short-lived. But as they say, you always want to leave people wanting more, right? Instead of being too long and then you kind of lose interest in the long run. But I don't think they ever hit their stride.
That's the nice thing about if you do a legacy, you can do flashbacks.
True. Exactly. Mm-hmm. You're right. And I love to see flashbacks with their origins, flashbacks with how they interact, how, and get really more layered to the character. So that's definitely my run. And I know, Rod, I mean, this is, you know a little bit about it, but what's your feel on what you heard so far? Would you want to see this comic book come back? And
you know what? It would be nice because, I mean, you start to see the similarities, but like you said, especially back then, the ideas of a lot of characters was a little touch of this, a little touch of that. Let me mix it here. You know, you're doing, Professor Proton and you're basing yourself your own little, Powerpuff Girls kind of scenario. That's really what it turned out to be. You got the similarities right around the building. So yeah, I think it actually, nowadays, I think it can actually work where people will see it maybe taken for half a second, but realizing, oh, this is a different character. Mm-hmm. And you may see the similarities, but here's why it's not similar. And just go through with that. Again, we're so accustomed. I've said it before. We are now in a modern time accustomed to multiverse. We're accustomed to multiverse. So it would be much easier to implement that idea and come out with a comic and just say, well, this is not new. This is old. Here what it is. And people are like, oh, I see the similarities. All right, we'll call that Earth Red or whatever the case may be. And then people accept it. Once you start off with that, your hands are clean. Mm-hmm. And you're good to go.
Yeah. So you're saying, okay, so I got...
With Archie having the rights back to them, as what are they going to do? Mm-hmm. They can either run... I'd love if they'd run a new Dark Circle beyond those 4-issue runs.
Yeah, you can't establish too much in a 4-issue run. That's just wetting your beak.
You need
that's
more.
Just wetting your beak in a 4-issue run, right? Like a proper miniseries is at least 12 issues. Like give me 6 to 12, and then you got to keep going on. Like Mark Miller, prime example. He will do his books, and they'll run for let's say 4 to 6 issues, right, with one character. But that's just a story arc, and then he'll come in with a second story arc and do the same thing. So even though they're 4 to 6 issues, he's just doing story arcs instead of doing issues 1 to 12. 1 to 15, it's like, here's one block, let me come back, here's another block. So he's still developing things in the past, but he's consistent with it so that at least fans understand what he's doing. They can't be just one done and walk away. So one, love to see the comic book come back. I think it needs to come back and give it a little bit more diversity of what's going on. 2, I'll say this, you guys can chime in after. I would like to see it come back on some type of media. And I'm talking like outside of the comic book. So either if it's going to be a cartoon, if it's going to be, but not like a kiddie jokey cartoon. So either if a cartoon or some live action treatment. I don't know if we'll even get that far, but I think they should test the waters with like how we had a Justice League cartoon, the Batman the Animated Series cartoon, something along those lines.
I'd like to see something. Okay, all right. If we're going to do the casting,
I didn't cast anyone, but go ahead.
I'm not casting yet. I'm not even thinking that.
Yeah,
where I want to go. I agree with you. Cartoon. Along the lines of Wildcats.
Yes.
The original team.
Oh, that's good.
For the first run.
Yeah.
First 13 episodes.
Gotcha, right?
Legacies, if it goes to the second season.
Yes. Yes.
Because that's and people accepted Wildcats. Right. Well, when Wildcats came out, it was accepted. You can see the similarities to who each character could be, but it was, to me, I accepted Wildcats straight easily from the jump. So yeah, you're right. If you go from that standpoint, yeah, that'd be good. I can see that.
Yeah. And to your point there, Larry, absolutely. Because how Justice League went, and they did more as Justice League, and then they went Justice League Unlimited. It would be still nice to see, Crusaders. Yeah, exactly. So do the Crusaders as original run, and then do second season as Legacy, and it's still tied in and it expands the universe.
Now we got to talk about 3 other teams.
Okay.
All right. First team. Marvel Comics.
Yep.
The Crusaders. In the couple of issues of the Invaders.
Yes. Okay. All right. Yeah.
All right. All of them. Now, there was an agreement between DC and Marvel at this time to do homages to their other characters. This is how you originally got the Squadron Sinister. which
Right.
became the Squadron Supreme. Okay. So, the homage to the freedom fighters in the Invaders were the Crusaders.
Mm-hmm.
You had a
Right.
character called Ghost Girl.
Mm-hmm.
A character called Captain Wings.
Yeah.
You had Thunderfist. Okay. I'm not going to go on everybody, but so if you know the freedom fighters,
Mhm.
then you'll know who the homage is.
Yeah, of course.
Right? All right. In the meantime, over in DC and the freedom fighters, you have an homage to the Invaders.
Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You
Because
have
I
a
read those
character
books.
called Americommando and his sidekick Rusty.
That was awesome.
And so forth. Yes. All right. So those are two other Crusaders. And finally, we have from a group that later became the Southern Knights.
I don't know that one.
So Southern Knights was an independent series. And they originally started out as the Crusaders in their first issue.
Mm-hmm.
You had a really strong girl. You had a girl who had a magic sword. You had a dragon. And so forth. All right. And that group got sued. Or actually, they got a cease and desist. Not quite sued yet. From guess who? Archie Comics.
Really?
Even though they weren't putting out a Crusaders title at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So who was doing that comic book?
Give me a second. See what I can do there.
See, that one I don't know. I never heard that one.
Mm-hmm.
You never heard of Southern Knights?
No. That one went right over my head.
You are going to have to. You're going to have to look that up.
Step my game up. Southern Knights.
Southern Knights.
That's okay. And got sued by Archie Comics.
Yes, they did. Talk amongst yourselves a moment.
Yeah. Sued or a cease and desist.
Yes.
Southern Knights, the comic created by the husband and wife team of Henry and Audrey Vogel. Okay.
Yep. It's a great series if you get a chance to read it. But yeah. You've got magic, you've got a mage, you've got awesome stuff in there. So
yeah, I'm just kind of taking a little quick peek at the team right now. Okay, yeah. Members, yep. Electrode, Kristen, Connie, Dragon, Aramis. All right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also called the Guild Comics at the time.
Yes.
Yep. And yeah, it's I think it's awesome. It starts out as just 4, it ends up being 5 characters as the team. The original creative team had 3 writers, the co-creator, the original creators, and David H. Willis, who was their letterer, but he worked on it for a while as some part-time writer. I think it only went up to like 7 issues, and then it was taken over by Comics Interview magazine. And I actually thought it was an awesome group. How many did they do? Okay, 33 issues in total.
All right, so I got to look that up. I got to put that on my note there. So see, I learned something today. So, all right then. So they started off, and they got, because you started off with the name as well, Southern Knights, but they started off with Crusaders or Crusaders 1, and that's why Archie Comics came in there and said, hey, you can't use that, even though they weren't printing anything at the time, but they own the rights.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
and the only reason why Archie Comics didn't go after DC and Marvel for their one-shots, they were one-shots.
yeah. So no harm, no foul. One shots, and then it kind of. All right, that's interesting. That's interesting. All right, we got to come back and maybe do something on Southern Crusaders. Sorry, Southern Knights when I do some reading on that.
Sure.
Because this is right up on this whole channel. Okay.
Anytime.
Oh man, we're going down the rabbit hole, man. So I know we've been going here for a while. Let's wrap this up, but we gotta do a part 2 or continuation on this. So far we all agree a comic book needs to come back. So far we all agree that we'd like to see this in a media, and I think we're all in line here saying cartoon, because with a cartoon we got a lot more. It's lesser on the budget, more flexibility when it comes to doing effects and showing powers, and you're not going to get hindered by, can't show this, budget. So you can start big, go home. It's like go big or go home, so to speak.
Right.
So I fully agree with that. I'm still a fan of like the Impact. That's the one that stands in my mind the most, is the Impact version of the Mighty Crusaders. So I like that a lot. So I got to say, Larry, thank you once again for joining us. We definitely got to get more on this Southern Knights, so let's put a pin in that, Rod. And from there, Rod, any last words?
Sure. You know what? No, listen, there was a lot of good information going on here, from Mighty Crusaders to Breakdown to now we just like throwing in the rabbit hole of the Knights, so Southern Knights. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to take in, but definitely there's some good comics out there, some good history. And you can start seeing, like, back in the days, the similarities. Stuff started to make sense. The Shield, that's still mentally blown. You're just mentally thinking, a year before. I will just leave it at that. We'll just leave.
And there was actually another character in between called the Minuteman.
All right, Larry, we got to talk more about this. We got to come back and talk more about this. Minutemen and Southern Knights. All right. Done. On top of all the other stuff that we already have lined up already. So that's beautiful. All right, awesome. Any last words, Mr.? All right, perfect. Any last words, Larry, before we wrap this one up?
Yeah. First, make sure you have fun and support your local comic store.
Couldn't have said it better. On behalf of the Iconist Podcast, this is Barry 3D. Of course, I'm here with Larry Reclusado and my cousin, Ethan Rods. As I always like to say, this whole world was started by a pencil, a piece of paper, and a box of imagination. Keep on dreaming. We're out.